on that note, are we ready to begin? Is that okay? I have to use the microphone? Apparently I have to use the microphone because I'm not as loud as I think I am. Okay, so my name is Elise, and I'm here to talk to you about what I think of as financial wellness in the context of generations. What does it mean to us? And this is really based on a study that MetLife has recently released. We released it in March. So let's just start with the Reality Bites clip here for anyone who is of the Generation X era. This was a big deal for us. We just had graduated from college. This was a big movie at the time, so this was 1994, 95, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with our lives, and it really spoke to all of us at the time. And now what we're finding is we have found our jobs, we've found our positions in life, and we're still miserable. That's what these studies are showing us. The question is why? The why is not all that surprising. We have always, in the age range that we are at, we've always been sort of disappearing. So we're like the wallflower of generations. We're between the baby boomers, who've always been given a ton of attention. They changed everything. They were such a big deal because of the huge population of baby boomers. And in case anyone doesn't know what a baby boomer is, they were the group that was born just after World War II. People wanted to rebuild their families, especially in America, so they were born just after 1945. And they were a huge population, hence a baby boom. And as they grew up, they changed the culture. They were a very big deal. And as they're retiring, they're changing things as well. They're working longer, which means that people in Generation X are not able to move up the ladder as quickly as they want to, which is in some ways causing them to be unhappy. They're staying in their positions for longer, and that's problematic. That's one of the reasons that they're feeling unhappy right now. So that's one example. Yeah, did someone just say bless you or question? Okay, all right, my apologies. So it just gives you an idea of what's to come as we go through some of this data. Okay, I'm going to take you into the actual presentation now. So how do we learn, and this is for all of us, how do we learn to thrive in the current workforce? Let's start with a definition of financial wellness. This is a buzzword that comes up often when people are talking about retirement plans, the health of their actual savings. So it's thrown up here on the screen, and it really is more than what's actually happening in your pocket. In some ways, it's about your state of mind, and are you ready and prepared for an urgency, for something to happen? The biggest concern that we have, and I say we as the people who are in financial services, is that people aren't prepared for long-term issues, meaning retirement, but they're also living paycheck to paycheck. What is this doing to people? Is this making them unhealthy? Because we're seeing that. And if health becomes a problem, that also will cause an issue on their finances. What can we do about it? In your day-to-day, have you thought about financial wellness? Is this something that you're concerned with? Anyone in here think about this? Is this a lingering issue? Does it keep you up at night? I imagine it is. It's something that concerns all of us, and I think it doesn't matter at what your socioeconomic level is, at every socioeconomic level, you're going to feel some sort of pressure. So Michael Lewis tells a story that, and Michael Lewis was a big Wall Street person, so he said that as you climb the socioeconomic ladder, your stresses are different. So you could be a multimillionaire, and then the pressure that you feel is you want to have your Learjet. So at one point, all you cared about was being able to pay your bills every month. And then when you're hobnobbing with the super wealthy, you want to make sure that you're able to keep up with the Joneses. So everyone feels it's a different financial pressure, but it feels the same. It still keeps you up at night. Everyone can feel it in their own way. I would really like to have the concern of not being able to afford the Learjet, but still, it's interesting to know that everybody feels it. So financial stress, which is, again, a real concern, it doesn't stop at the office door. It doesn't stop when you walk onto the college campus. So, and it affects everyone at all stages of life. What's interesting is 1 in 3 employees admit to being less productive because of this financial stress. It permeates all through your life and truly does affect you. So what can we do about this? It's great that we've identified that it is that big of an issue. What do we do now? Financial wellness, and I think it's part of the reason that you're sitting through all of these presentations today, is a focus from many employers. So we know through the university that we're trying to educate everyone here about the importance of your savings and preparing for retirement all along the way. So employers have indicated that they have objectives around financial wellness. They want to make sure you're prepared for retirement. They want to make sure that you understand what it means to be prepared. So if we have 80% of employees that are interested in accessing financial planning, that's wonderful. However, only 20% are actually utilizing these tools. So there seems to be some sort of disconnect there. Everyone wants to use it, but you don't have the actual opportunity to. I think this is about time in your day. I think this is about real life gets in the way. Does anyone else have any thoughts as to what happens? You have the best plans and something comes up, or it's inconvenient. You have no interest in listening to a person standing in front of the room and lecturing you. I understand. What difference does it make? You have no relationship with me or whomever else might be here. You don't trust us, is something that I often hear, which I, again, completely understand, and that's okay, which is why we have lots of different ways for you to learn about this. There's no reason to listen to anything I have to say. So there's other opportunities. You can learn through all different channels, and we'll talk some more about that. And probably you know a lot of this, or you have your sister-in-law's uncle is in the business and he tells you what to do. Now let's take another step forward, and here's where we get in a little bit into the generation gap. And let's just take a look in the upper right corner at the generations. So we have Generation Z. They're very young, so they don't actually think about anything regarding savings or retirement. And yet they should be starting immediately, because it's the power of compounding that makes the biggest difference in your long-term savings. So if they put away a little bit of money right now, they have the benefit of time on their side. Put away money now, it will, every 7 to 10 years, it will double. So it's just a matter of time that helps them, and that's their benefit. It's less about where it's invested and more about the benefit of time. Now, if we take a look at the millennials, again, right now, Generation Z is not working, which is why we only see 21 and 22-year-olds. Millennials, again, it's the benefit of time on the earlier end. But even in your 30s, you still have plenty of time to have that money grow and compound. We then see Generation X. It's a big span, 37 to 52. And then we have the baby boomers. The silent generation is already sitting in retirement. So let's take a look at employees who feel in control of their finances. That gray dot is Generation X. This just goes back to show you that Generation X doesn't feel like they have any control of things. They only feel like they have 59%, so they're the most out of control of their finances. Surprisingly, the millennials feel like they have more control. It's understandable that the young Generation Z lives paycheck to paycheck. And it's good to see that the boomers feel like they have control. Now, if we look back down one line to, one graph down to the employees who say they live paycheck to paycheck, we see that 60% of millennials say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Oops, sorry. So there's a disconnect between being in control of your finances and living paycheck to paycheck. So sometimes data doesn't necessarily speak to what's really happening, or maybe they didn't understand the question. So some of this is about education and understanding really what's being asked. As you know, data in, data out, or bad information in, bad information out, but it's helpful to just look at that, and maybe it requires a little more digging. In the middle chart, here's additional information. This is not from MetLife's research. This is from the Pew Research Center. Generation X has always and continues to stand out for its pessimism. In this case, it's pessimistic about retirement. So it's millennials, Generation X is in the middle there, and boomers are on the end. So between the two, boomers are most concerned about their retirement. Why? We don't really know. This is data from 2012. And as we get closer on the left side of the page, Generation X households, this is again to show you a flip side of things. Generation X households are the only ones to have recovered the wealth they lost in what we call the Great Recession of 2008. So if you take a look, the gray box is the money that they had in 2007. The yellow shows in 2010, so after the recession, that's how much they had lost, so they went down that much. And in 2016, they're back up. So you see the silent generation had a loss. The baby boomers did not recover their loss. Generation X did recover its loss. So it shows you that even though Generation X is particularly pessimistic, they were able to recover their losses. So the question continues, why is Generation X so much more pessimistic? Is it realistic that they feel that way? It's not necessarily about their savings. It's not because they've had such a hard ride in the markets. Any questions about this or any thoughts as we're looking through this? Okay. This is interesting, and it continues to go through this entire deck. Financial perceptions don't match reality. 63% of employees feel financially confident, but the number one source of employees' stress is their personal finances. Over 6 in 10 employees feel they're in control of their finances, yet 5 in 10 live paycheck to paycheck. Gender has an effect on financial perception as well. This is not all that surprising. Women overall tend to have a harder time with savings, and this is for a number of different reasons. I think we can understand some of these. We do know that women make less money than men, which is not fair, but it is our reality. Women also take some time out of the workforce for a number of different reasons. We tend to be the caretaker, so we have less time to build up our savings. If we take a look, men and women take different approaches to savings. Men do not live as frequently paycheck to paycheck. It's 44% versus 55%. Women are less likely to feel confident in their finances. They also do not have the same savings cushion. In financial terms, we tend to tell people that you should have a 3-month salary cushion of savings. This is when people start to get really nervous. That's not the purpose of this discussion. It's just to share additional information with you. And if you see, the green is women. Women do not have that, men do. And then more again about feeling in control of your finances. Perception versus reality again. Employees' actions don't match their desire to save for the future. 76% of employees say they are willing to make short-term financial sacrifices, but 50% of employees are directly allocating part of their paycheck to a savings account. So it doesn't match what people say. I think part of this is we don't have the ability to save as much as we want to. Just because you want to, in theory, it doesn't mean you actually can. Many employees may prioritize short-term over long-term. So let's take a look. 30% of those with defined contribution retirement plans have dipped into them. So I won't ask you to raise your hands, but I imagine there are some people in this room who've taken a loan from their retirement plan. It's an option for you if you need it, but it does have an effect on your long-term savings. So just something to think about in the back of your head. And it would make sense before taking a loan to speak to somebody, to speak to one of the financial advisors on site, and talk through what that actually means to you long-term. This is interesting. I don't think it's surprising. If you're less stressed, you tend to be happier. Is that surprising to anybody in this room? So if finances make people stressed, if you're not worried about your finances, you're probably happier. 90% of happy employees say they're loyal to their employer, which means this is an important slide to Kean University. They want you to be happy. They want you to be loyal. It ultimately costs them more if you're unhappy. How can they do that? By having more of these discussions. There are a number of different financial wellness programs, not only at Kean, but also from the state of New Jersey. As you all know, there are rich benefits here. Does that help you stay at the university? We think it should. I'm in the private sector. I know our benefits are not as rich as yours. So that certainly should matter to you as you're making some decisions. What's interesting is showing those 3 bottom charts. It shows happiness, being engaged, and being productive. And then if you look up on the left side, it shows that those employees are also less stressed and less tired. So if you're feeling like you're doing all of these things, prepared for retirement, saving day to day, you have a cushion to live on, you're going to be able to sleep at night, which is often what we talk about. What is the biggest stress for you? What keeps you awake at night? Now, I mentioned earlier that you don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to a person who you do not trust. But it's often helpful to have a number of different ways of learning and educating yourself. And you're educators. You're working at a campus, a university where people are trying to learn. So how do you gather this information? Again, the multi-channels make a difference. So you can talk to someone on site. I come from a world where I don't want to talk to someone in person. It's not my thing. I want to gather the information first, and I gather that information usually online. I find that that's the best way for me to learn. And there's tons of resources online. I can show you a website after that enables you to learn as much as you possibly can to a certain point, is what I think. And then, once you have all of the information that you feel comfortable with, you can then make decisions on your own. If you are not comfortable at that point, then perhaps you'll want to meet with an individual. But only, I think, at that point are you able, once you have your own knowledge base, to talk to someone. It's very hard to talk to someone without having your own information and having a level of understanding. So while we have all of these different options, someone can tell you what you should do short term, but you don't necessarily know if they're giving you sound advice. Do I believe that the people that are coming out here are giving you sound advice? Yes. Am I 100% sure that they're always doing what they're supposed to do? I don't know. I don't know if every single advisor that comes on campus has been vetted and is doing the appropriate thing. I know the advisors that I've sent out are supposed to be doing that, but I also know that people have numbers that they have to hit. So you should keep that in mind, and you should be aware. You should be a knowledgeable and educated client, consumer. It's like Sims used to have that ad years ago. I know I'm dating myself, but that's really important to understand what you're stepping into. Pay attention to fees. Pay attention to a lot of different things that are going on. I know there's a really nice comparison that NJABP puts out for you. It's worthwhile to look at that before you make any decisions. And it's not just about the retirement plan, it's in all of these different things that you're looking at for short-term, long-term, and everything in between. You might not need all of those different pieces of life insurance. It might not be appropriate for you. So take time when people are selling you things. Often, a question that comes up a lot for us is student loan questions. Does it make sense for you to pay for your child's college education, or should your child take loans? Those are the types of things that come up. There are basic calculators out on the web that allow you to model this information. So take the time in advance to look that information up. Don't just randomly, based on what your neighbor does, assume that that fits you, because everyone is very individual, and you should be aware of that. There's 4 principles to a successful program. So it's understanding who you are by gathering and assessing data. Personalized approach, as I just mentioned. I'm mid-40s. I have 2 children. My children are young. So how I approach things will be different from a person who is in their mid-40s with children who are already in college. I have much more that needs to be saved. for a longer period of time than someone who's in their 40s, their children are already in college or perhaps out of college. I started late. It means that things have to be different. Let's say that the person sitting next to me is the child of Jeff Bezos. They're going to be, again, in a very different situation than I am. So try not to compare yourself to your neighbor. You don't necessarily know what's actually happening in their life. It is very individualized how you plan for your short-term and long-term finances. We see a lot that the head of a department will recommend that everybody put their money into fixed income. That's not the best way of planning. So what we have here in the circle, there's the digital way, so that would be using a website. You can call. There's a call center where you can speak to registered people, and they will assist you and help you understand what's available. And then again, you can work with the in-person, on-site representatives. So the goal is for you to have that three-legged stool and feel completely supported. This is a little bit about the website. What is unique about this website is it doesn't sell you anything. You know, it's surprising. It's a MetLife insurance. I know you think MetLife, it's an insurance-based website, but the goal here is truly to just educate you. You get here, and there are videos, so you could take a little video, click it, and it will tell you about whatever it is you've selected. There's calculators. The calculators are very useful to tell you if you increase your contribution, how will it affect your paycheck? There's the student loan calculators. There's also links to other resources. So you can find a link to the IRS website. It will explain how how your contribution is going to affect your taxes. It's going to take you to a Social Security website so that you can find out what your Social Security income is going to look like when you retire. It takes you to a lot of different places to read all different articles to back up the information that you potentially are hearing from your on-site representative. There's presentations on demand. There's a lot of different information, and it's broken into 3 distinct sections. So when you're initially starting to join the plan versus when you're already engrossed in the plan and you need to decide how to allocate your assets, as opposed to when you're getting closer to retiring and you have to figure out how you're going to what we call pay down, so meaning draw down the money. So that's also a very unique situation because now, instead of just gathering the assets, you have to figure out how you're going to live off of those monies. And when you do retire, you're going to be between 65 and 75 years old. You're not planning to, the day you retire, die. You plan to live in retirement. So you need to have those assets to live on. And it's very important to plan for that stage, that life stage, which makes a difference for you. You don't want to outlive these retirement assets. So what does that mean for you? Do you have to adjust your lifestyle when you retire? How are you going to plan for that retirement stage? Program resources that exist for the MetLife Bright House plan. There's a voice response system, the participant call center, and the website. And of course, your on-site representative. And then I have disclosures that you'll see later. But this is a little bit more information about the Next Generation website. It will show you lifetime income information. So and I believe that all of the statements, regardless of who your vendor is, will show this to you. So instead of just showing you, for example, that you currently have $50,000 in the plan, which is wonderful to see that. It's going to show you how much you're going to have as a monthly income in the future. So it's wonderful to know that you have a current balance of X, but it's much more meaningful to know what that's going to mean as a monthly check once you've retired, because that's really what matters. Is that meaningful? Does that make sense to people? Because what is that $50,000 today going to buy you in the future? I always think it would be really helpful if we put little milk cartons so that you could see that you could buy 7 milk cartons with your money each month in the future, or tanks of gas, so that you have an understanding of what that money is going to do for you in the future. Because I know people that they have $1 million in the bank or in their retirement plan, and they think they're all set. But in reality, based on how they live with their current income, they're not going to meet their future needs. That's what matters. It's less about the total balance and more about their future retirement income needs. And that's what this site will help you figure out. And if you need assistance playing around with this website, let me know, let your on-site representative know, and we will help you with that. It doesn't mean that you have to be a MetLife participant. That's what's special about this site. We'll walk you through it so that you can determine if you need to increase your contribution with TIA or VALIC, whatever you need. The goal here is to assist you in understanding what you currently have and what actions you potentially need to take to enrich your future benefits. And I know, you don't trust me, I get it. But the goal, again, is to help you understand. And that's why these websites, these tools are so important. Not selling you anything, just want to help. So if you look at that on the bottom right, it's color-coded to show you what's in the plan. And one shows you, so for example, I can't really see it right here. So I see the yellow, as an example, is what you would be getting from Social Security, or what John Doe gets from Social Security. The green, if I take off my glasses, the green shows your current savings. The blue is employee contributions. And the red is, I think, your income. That's what you're short, what John Doe is short. So it's really helpful to see it, and they show it like this. They'll show it to you in a bar graph, whatever is meaningful to you to help you understand what you have or what you don't have. And they also will show you lifetime income scores in comparison to other people. Now, I don't know that it matters, because what if everybody else is really clueless and they really have no money? Does it matter how you're doing in comparison with everybody else? No. And you can also bring in spousal money to show how you're doing if you're part of a couple. So that's helpful as well, if you're not the only person saving, if you're saving together, so you can see how you're doing as a group. A lot of this is very, very much about you understanding and being able to truly plan. You can put in information like, let's say you're planning your future to buy a yacht. You could put that information in there as well. Are you going to really be able to retire in the way you planned to? Mm-hmm. So you can adjust the assumptions. But the assumptions, some of the assumptions are based on, so it starts at about 7% annual return. You can adjust it down or up based on how conservative or aggressive you are, and you indicate that as you're planning the what the output will be. Yeah. The only thing that you aren't able to adjust is Social Security, because that is pulled from the Social Security website. So I will use this caveat. The baby boomers, so if you're really close to retirement, we're pretty sure Social Security is going to still be there. Do we know for sure that Social Security is going to be there 20 years from now? We don't. Do we expect it to be there? You know, fingers crossed. But if you look at John Doe, that's a big chunk of his future savings. I would love to say that. I would really love to say that. And so this is the next, I think, where we have a lot of issues here, right? And so let's go back to Generation X for a moment. About 15 years ago, we used to call the baby boomers the sandwich generation, meaning they had to take care of their parents and also take care of their children. So they were sandwiched between these two responsibilities, which made it very difficult for them to save. Now, the assumption or the reason where we believe Generation X is so unhappy is they are now the sandwich generation. So, meaning the baby boomers are now their parents. They're taking care of their baby boomer parents who didn't save because they were too busy buying their Beatles albums, and it's just an example, but doing everything, you know, they wanted to be flash, they wanted to have every brand name, that's who they were. They were yuppies, the baby boomers were the yuppies. And so they didn't save, they just spent everything. So now we're taking care of our baby boomer parents, and we're educating our children. Our children are moving back home, not mine haven't left. But that's what we're stuck with. So we're the sandwich generation. What I anticipate, and I'm sure you can imagine, is that the next generation is going to be unhappy, the millennials, when we get old, when Generation X gets old, because that's what keeps happening. Because it's hard to save when you have children and you have parents that you have to take care of. This keeps on spreading.
Well, we're seeing a concentration of wealth in, the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing an erosion of loyalty from companies, an erosion of benefits such as pensions.
Yes.
So, and there's a lot of reason to feel concerned.
Yes.
And my understanding is that most people, on average, are underfunded for their retirement.
That's correct.
So, if anything, I think we should be strengthening our Social Security because that's at least affects everybody. Because I think we're seeing these impacts on people who are have mental health issues. I feel lucky that I have a job and we have good benefits, but I really, it doesn't look good overall for the entire country. And I was just wondering, how does MetLife look at that as a more altruistic challenge? I mean, there are initiatives to help those who don't have benefits and don't have access to benefits. Besides, we're in a gig economy now.
Yes.
There's not access to benefits. So, to me, it's not as much of a concern for myself. It's a concern for our country.
To insurance companies, we like the concept of if someone's paying taxes, they're going to look to us for a tax-deferred vehicle. So that's a comfortable role for us because you'll come to the insurance companies to set up tax-deferred vehicles. It is problematic to if the government does not continue to keep taxes, does not continue to have their citizens paying taxes, the Social Security bucket disappears. And that's the issue. We need to continue paying taxes and have a government that understands that and respects that. If there are less workers working and paying taxes than the people who are living off of Social Security, we have a problem. So as the baby boomers, because they're such large numbers, age out of the workforce, there's less people supporting them. The good thing is the millennials are all working, and that should be helpful. It is a problem. But they are increasing the age that you're able to take your Social Security. So every time they ratchet up that, it does make a difference, so it's helpful. Any other questions about Social Security? Participant-facing materials, I don't bring handouts for the reason that I don't want to leave paper around that no one's going to actually read. If you'd like to receive paper or information from me, feel free to leave an email. I'll leave a book in the back, and you can leave an email address for me, and I'm happy to send you information that would be helpful. That's this slide. It's for green reasons. And that's it for today, unless you have some other questions. Thanks. Does anyone want to see the website? Or we could do that after the fact. Just feel free to reach out to me if anything comes up, okay?